It is clear that I have come to praise the value and power of housing, not to condemn it. I want to say that again. I want to make it very clear that I have come to value and embrace the power of housing, not to condemn it. Forgive me, William Shakespeare, for taking your line out of context and turning it upside down, actually, because rather than Brutus's line, I have come to bury Caesar, not to praise him, I've turned it exactly the opposite. I've come to praise housing, not to condemn it. What I am eager to do is have a very open and honest conversation with all of you about how important housing is, why I believe it's important, what we can do together to convert the way that housing is delivered into something that genuinely can change the world. And that is my passion. That's why I got into housing over 20 years ago. That's why I cared about housing enough to study it long before I embarked upon becoming involved in it, and why, when I became involved, I chose to charge down a path that was entirely different than the conventional path that others had taken, and try to build a model that was based upon building relationships. In fact, the number one core value of my business and my company and my life was relationships are my highest priority. That was my number one value. My view was if I was very successful in embracing meaningful relationships, that the money aspect of the business would follow. That relationships would lead to commitments, and commitments would lead to enthusiasm. Enthusiasm would lead then to a desire to honor and pay more for a value that is received that is greater than four walls, a ceiling, and a floor. In my view, housing has been reduced down to a transaction about four walls, a ceiling, and a floor. And I say that from the point of view of both being a provider of housing and being a consumer of housing. We're all consumers of housing. In the course of my lifetime, I have consumed all forms of housing. I've been in a condominium, I've been in a single family home, I've been in a number of different apartment complexes as a resident and treated as a resident. I have been a consumer of housing, and my wife and I often talked about our experiences in all of those activities. And it was the foundation of what brought me to the point of view 20 years ago that I wanted to change the course of my life and become a committed part of the housing industry. And I sit in front of you now, carrying on this conversation with you now from the perspective that I am just as passionately interested in doing that today as I was then. I ask you to hear carefully what I'm trying to say. That I'm not condemning any of you that are already in the housing industry for what you've done. I, in fact, understand what it is that you're doing. I understand the pressure that you're under because the capital is so intense that you've got to be able to figure out a way to honor your commitment to the capital while delivering on the product that you're trying to pursue. But I'm also asking you to think about the possibility, and you'll hear me say this many times in the course of our relationship, that there's a wonderful power I ask you to unleash. And that wonderful power is the power of and. I believe we can have not this or that, we can have this and that. And I believe we can have highly successful, highly functional, highly capital focused communities that are also driven by a compelling need to make the quality of life of the people who are touched by our communities better quality of life. And I'm not only speaking to people in the multifamily space, I am and was in the multifamily space. I'm speaking to everybody who in any way at all is a provider of housing, whether they're a provider because they provide the capital to make housing possible, the bank that is providing the capital to make a loan possible so that you can leverage what you're trying to do, the investors that are coming along and lining up to be a part of the venture because that's what it's going to take is you need a significant amount of capital to make this happen. We're talking about all aspects of the housing industry, the people who are the developers, the people who are, in fact, the operators who are making the communities work from a functional point of view, and the most undervalued, unsung heroes of all in housing are the professional managers. And I'll spend a lot of time talking about the value of professional managers and its ability to translate that into a meaningful outcome. What I'm saying to you is listen to what's going to be coming forward from this effort and understand that I am working to change all of us, driven by my compelling need to change the world one community at a time through one relationship at a time, because I believe if you join me in that, the problems we're seeing around us in a world that is totally unsettled at the moment, the difficulties we're seeing in the lack of commitment and respect we have for one another, all of that can be resolved because I've seen that occur in the communities that I had the good fortune to be the owner-operator of. So follow me, please. Understand, please, that this is a journey that I wish to share with you. I wish you to trust me enough to be open and honest with you through this journey. I wish to ask you to engage with me a little bit and feed back to me questions or anxieties you have, or even opposition that you feel, so that we can fashion a greater world. And we can fashion that greater world based upon the thing every single human being requires: housing. A housing environment that uplifts us in so many ways. I will be spending some time talking about the unpacking of what we all know as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because it is really important that we just not ignore that little bit of instruction that we received, like I did when I was in college, as part of basic psychology. It is really fundamental truth. And fundamental truth is something that we always need to come back, revisit, honor, and respect enough to ask ourselves, are we doing what we need to do to make that truth manifest more for others? So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking with you again in the future. Again, this is Howard Primer, and we're on this journey together, making housing the foundational solution to the world's troubles. Thank you very much.